Before I said I do, I lived inside a beautiful story, a fairy tale promise shaped by books, films, and whispered dreams. I believed love was a destination, a safe harbor where storms would pass us by. I pictured a home filled with laughter, gentle disagreements, and endless happiness. I had faith in us, and in the love story I'd always been promised. My confidence before our wedding day was boundless. It felt like standing on top of a mountain, with the whole world spread out below me, clear and full of potential. I looked at him and saw my entire future. I saw a partner who understood me without words, a soulmate who would always be on my side. I believed our connection was so profound that it could withstand anything. We talked for hours about our dreams, our values, our plans for the children we would one day have. We agreed on everything. It felt like our hearts beat to the same rhythm, a perfect, synchronized drumbeat that would guide us through life together. I remember thinking that love was the only tool we would ever need. It was the answer to every question, the solution to every problem. I didn't know then that love wasn't just a feeling, but a practice. I didn't know it required maintenance and hard work. In my pre-marriage innocence, love was a self-sustaining fire. It would burn brightly on its own forever, without needing any more fuel than our initial commitment. I truly believed that the intensity of what we felt for each other was enough. It would be our anchor in any storm, our light in any darkness. I was so sure that nothing could ever diminish it. People would sometimes offer cautious advice. They would say things like, "Marriage is hard work," or "You'll see things change." I would listen politely, but inside, I would smile to myself. I thought they just didn't understand our love. Their experience wasn't our experience. We were different. We had something stronger, something purer. I felt a quiet, gentle pity for them, for their jaded view of what was, to me, the most magical union in the world. My belief in us was absolute. It was a conviction that settled deep in my bones, as real and solid as the ground beneath my feet. Looking back, I see a girl filled with such beautiful, hopeful certainty. She was standing on the edge of the biggest journey of her life, and she thought she had the map all figured out. She believed love would protect us from everything. She had no idea that love itself would be the thing that was tested the hardest. She didn't know that the journey wasn't about arriving at a perfect destination, but about navigating a wild, unpredictable, and often difficult terrain. She was about to step into the real story, the one that happens after the fairy tale ends. And she was completely, blissfully unprepared. After the wedding, after the honeymoon, a new kind of silence settled in our home. It wasn't uncomfortable, just different. The air had shifted, as if someone had quietly rearranged the furniture. Our conversations turned practical, the vibrant world of our courtship fading to something softer, quieter. I felt like a spectator to my own marriage, sensing something had quietly, fundamentally shifted. With the new stillness came a new set of rules. They were unspoken, but they began to govern our lives. I learned not to disturb the peace, to swallow small frustrations, to keep my feelings quiet. Each unspoken truth became a brick in the invisible wall between us. The quiet shift wasn't just in our home, it was inside me. When I became a wife, I thought I was simply becoming a partner, a title of love and commitment. But I quickly discovered an unspoken job description: planner, organizer, keeper of dates and details. The invisible work of remembering, anticipating, and managing our lives quietly fell to me. It was a role I never applied for, but one I carry every day. I was silently assigned the role of the strong one, not in grand battles, but in absorbing his moods, creating calm, and keeping the peace. My own feelings were set aside, my strength a quiet shield. It was lonely, holding everything together, afraid to let a single crack show. I was the keeper of a peace that was costing me my own. The job of being the emotional manager extended beyond just keeping the peace. It involved being the relationship's official communicator and translator. If there was a difficult conversation to be had with his family, I was the one expected to initiate it, to phrase it delicately, to smooth over any ruffled feathers. I became the bridge between him and the rest of the world, tasked with managing perceptions and ensuring all our social interactions were harmonious. It was as if my own emotional intelligence was now a shared resource, a utility for him to use whenever difficult feelings were involved. I was the one who had to be brave enough for both of us. This role became most apparent during disagreements. I learned that my job was not just to express my own feelings, but to manage his reaction to them. I had to present my hurt or frustration in a way that wouldn't make him defensive or cause him to shut down. It was a strategic exercise. I would rehearse the conversations in my head, trying to find the perfect combination of words that would allow me to be heard without upsetting the fragile balance of our connection. It was exhausting. I longed for the freedom to just be angry, or sad, or disappointed, without having to worry about his response. I became the cheerleader, the therapist, and the coach. When he doubted himself, it was my job to build him back up. When he was unsure about a decision, it was my job to research the options and present him with a clear path forward. I was constantly monitoring his emotional state, anticipating his needs, and working to meet them before he even had to ask. This wasn't something I did out of a lack of love. On the contrary, I did it because I loved him so much. I wanted him to be happy and successful, and I thought this was how I could help him achieve that. I thought this was what a supportive wife did. But in becoming his emotional manager, I had forgotten to manage my own. My emotional well was running dry. I was giving so much of my energy to him that there was nothing left for me. I was so attuned to his feelings that I was becoming deaf to my own. The roles I had taken on, the planner, the peacekeeper, the manager, were all consuming. They left little room for me to just be me. I was a wife, yes, but I was starting to feel like that was all I was. The other parts of my identity were fading into the background, overshadowed by the duties I never signed up for. We thought we were doing well because we rarely fought. In my mind, a good marriage was a peaceful one, free from shouting matches and slammed doors. But what I mistook for peace was actually a carefully constructed silence. We weren't resolving conflict, we were avoiding it. The silence we cultivated to protect our peace was creating a vast, empty space between us. The absence of fighting wasn't a sign of a healthy relationship. It was a symptom of a dying one. As the emotional distance grew, our physical intimacy changed too. What was once spontaneous and easy became deliberate, almost routine. We were close, our bodies touching, but our hearts felt miles apart. I began to crave a different kind of closeness, one found in real conversation, laughter, and truly being seen. The most confusing part of it all was that I still loved him. My heart ached with how much I loved him. This wasn't a story of falling out of love. It was a story of loving someone so much, but feeling hurt by the very shape that love had taken. I would look at him across the dinner table, lost in his own thoughts, and my love for him would feel as strong and real as ever. I loved his kindness, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the familiar sound of his laugh. The foundation of our love was still there, solid and deep. But we had built such a strange, complicated structure on top of it, full of silent rooms and locked doors. Loving him while feeling so distant was a constant, low-grade pain. It was a dull ache in my chest that never quite went away. Some days, it was almost unbearable. I would feel a desperate urge to shake him, to shout, "Don't you see what's happening to us? We're disappearing." But I would say nothing. I would just offer him more potatoes and ask about his day, playing my part in the quiet play we were performing. I was still loving him, but I was hurting. The love and the hurt were all tangled up together, two sides of the same coin, and I didn't know how to separate them anymore. I felt like I was living a contradiction. How could I love someone so completely and yet feel so disconnected from them? I started to question myself, my feelings, my perception of reality. Was I making it all up? Was I just being too demanding, expecting a fairy tale that could never exist? I tried to convince myself that this was just what long-term love looked like. Maybe the initial fire was always meant to die down into these quiet, comfortable embers. But my heart knew better. This didn't feel like comfort. It felt like resignation. It felt like we were slowly giving up on the vibrant, connected love we had once promised each other. And so we continued on, two people who loved each other, living parallel lives under the same roof. We were orbiting each other, held in place by the powerful gravity of our history and our commitment, but never quite touching. The emotional distance felt like a physical presence in our home, a third person in our marriage. I still loved him. I knew he still loved me. But we were loving each other across an ever-widening chasm of silence and unspoken things. And the terrible unspoken question that haunted my quietest moments was, how long can a love like that survive? The two blue lines changed everything. Suddenly, we had a shared purpose, a future to plan, a family to become. For a while, we were a team again, swept up in the excitement of ultrasounds and baby names. But as my body changed, so did my sense of self. I became a vessel, my identity shifting before the baby even arrived. Childbirth was transformative, raw, powerful, and disorienting. In the aftermath, love for my child was overwhelming, but so was the sense of losing myself. My days became a cycle of feed, change, sleep, repeat. The world shrank to our home, my existence reduced to essential tasks. I had gained something beautiful, but felt the old me slipping away. Motherhood brought a new kind of love, and a new kind of loss. Motherhood multiplied my roles overnight. I became the default parent, the manager of every detail, the one everyone relied on. My time, energy, and attention belonged to others, my baby, my husband, our families. I was needed constantly, but had no idea how to refill my own well. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Exhausted, anxious, a shadow of who I'd been. Gratitude for my family mixed with grief for the person I'd lost. Guilt crept in for even feeling that loss. I was everything to everyone, but nothing to myself. The fear of disappearing was now my reality. I wondered if I'd ever find myself again. The breaking point was quiet. A still afternoon, a baby asleep, the house silent. Surrounded by the mess of daily life, I felt invisible. Tears came, not loud but deep, mourning the girl I'd been and the woman I'd lost. I questioned everything, my worth, my choices, my role in this loneliness. Was this just the price of family? I'd tried to be strong, but now I was falling apart. The silence echoed my emptiness. I looked at our wedding photo, longing to warn my younger self. Love wasn't a shield. The real battle was with the silence inside my own home. My tears were for the gap between the life I'd dreamed of and the one I was living. After the tears, anger simmered. Not at him, but at the roles I'd accepted without protest. I was tired of carrying the mental load, tired of being unseen. For the first time, I wondered, what was I not asking for? I'd never truly said, I need help, or I feel lonely. My silence had become my cage. That evening, I didn't pretend to be fine. I looked at him, letting the truth show. I didn't want perfection, just to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be partnered. The breaking point wasn't an end, but a beginning. I finally decided to ask for what I needed. It was the first step toward change. Choosing not to say, I'm fine, was my awakening. I started small, asking for help, carving out moments for myself. Each request felt risky, but the world didn't end. I realized I had to see my own worth before expecting anyone else to. I reclaimed small joys, reading, walking, being alone with my thoughts. Setting boundaries was hard, but necessary. Saying no became an act of self-preservation, not rejection. I was no longer disappearing for others' comfort. This wasn't about leaving my marriage, but saving it. We stumbled, but we talked. Finally, honestly. True strength was admitting I couldn't do it all alone. As I began to heal and reclaim myself, our definition of love changed. The fairy tale I once believed in was replaced by something real and resilient. Love became the hard work we do together, especially in the storms. We started redrawing the map of our marriage, choosing honesty, teamwork, and mutual respect. Our love isn't perfect, but it's real, and that's far better. This is the marriage nobody prepared me for. The fairy tale ends at the wedding, but the real story begins after. It's not perfect. Sometimes it's lonely, sometimes it's hard. But in the struggle, I found strength, self-awareness, and a love that's beautifully, achingly real. Did marriage surprise you too?